Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, what we're doing with this episode today is we are dragging an episode up out of the Lost Episodes folder, and we are re-recording it. So originally this episode was to appear earlier in the week, but I wasn't overly happy with it. It was something that needed some work. Also, I really wanted to use this footage because viewed in the right lighting, CIG's new cloud tech, it's actually quite impressive and quite beautiful with the right lighting. There's some stuff that still needs to be worked out, but they're on the right path because these skies look incredible. And the environments themselves, this is obviously, this is why this game is such screenshot porn, right? It's so friggin' gorgeous, and that's one of the things that I still love about Star Citizen, even after all these years. But to get back on topic, so why was this a lost episode? Is originally I was presenting an idea that I had come up with for a gameplay loop that I thought would be really fun, but the more that I thought about the idea and how I presented it, I was like, that honestly, there's a kernel of goodness in there, but is it enough to build a gameplay loop around? And it's going to involve making some changes to the game that maybe yes, maybe no, CIG would be into. So at the end of the day, I kind of sat on this episode, uploaded it to YouTube, never made it public, and then ultimately decided, I think last night or early this morning as I was leaving for work, it's like, no, I got to re-record this. I got to change it. So originally the idea was, in an area like Orison, let's say you're flying a cargo ship. You know what flying cargo out of Orison is going to be like, right? You know that you got to go all the way up to, 150,000 meters to get out of the atmosphere to quantum away. And that's a hell of a long way to go. And so what I was talking about was the idea that wouldn't it be cool if you could, you can't really use weapons, but what if we changed it so ship weapons don't work, but personal weapons do work outside of the station in the armistice zone? And what you could do is, as the ship was pulling up and away from Orison, as the cargo ship was flying away, what if you could use a drop ship that has a docking collar to mate with the caterpillar, right? Mate with the caterpillar, and so you could drop a boarding team onto that ship, commandeer the ship, and basically take it to Grim Hex, or maybe in the future Pyro, and kind of sell off the cargo, maybe part out the ship. A lot of interesting possibilities there, but this is where I kind of came into the problems as I was thinking about it afterwards. First of all, against a player, next to impossible to do, right? Because if you're flying up and out through the atmosphere, all you really would have to do is keep rolling your ship as you're flying away. Keep rolling your ship on the Z axis, guys? X? Wait. I think, it's X, Y, Z. I think it would be the X axis. You would just be like barrel rolling your ship endlessly. And just by doing that, you would make it almost impossible to latch onto that docking port unless someone just hovered in one spot, waited for you to spin by, and then just slammed it down at just the right moment to get the docking port. But the more I thought about it, it was like, what ships still have the docking collar? Well, the Cutlass Blue still has it. The Cutlass Red still has it, but not really the ideal ships for that. And the Cutlass Black used to have it, but it sadly disappeared. I don't know, maybe we could bring it back again, make a new version of the Cutlass Black, sell it. I'm sure there'd be a lot of enthusiastic buyers out there, but as I was kind of adding these things up, I said, well, it would be a versus NPC mechanic, really. And I don't know. I think it would be something you would have to, before you could kind of bring this idea out, you'd have to wait for some other things to exist in the game first and then see if people wanted to go there. Now, ship-to-ship docking is something that is still technically in the game, or still something that is technically planned. The Cutlass Blue and the Cutlass Red are evidence of that, but that is a willing ship-to-ship docking, right? So two ships cooperating with one another to, basically join up. The Constellation and the Merlin are a perfect example. In the future, the Cutlass Blue and the Cutlass Red, if you're boarding a ship as police to check it out, or if you're boarding as a medical party there to help the occupants of the ship, that is still something that is planned and is going to work. But once again, it's two willing participants. Against an unwilling participant, it becomes a lot more problematic. And I think that the way that CIG has kind of gravitated is that, if you remember, like, the Prowler used to be the stealth boarding ship, right? That's kind of how it was built a long, long time ago. And then it became a drop ship. Back when CIG had that little drop ship, or let's be honest, Chris Roberts had a dropship craze, and there was like the Redeemer, then there was the Hoplite, then there was the Valkyrie, and it's just like, do we have enough dropships? It's like, no, I want more. But in truth, it seems that a lot of the boarding of a ship is going to happen by EVA. Like, you're going to have to disable a ship and then probably use tractor beams to kind of pull that ship down to 0 speed, and then send boarders across, EVA across, kind of cut in through the doors, and then board the ship that way. That seems to be the way that CIG is kind of viewing boarding right now. So the old, like, snapping a pirate ship, with the Cutlass Black onto another ship, that's probably one of the reasons why that hatch got dropped, is it was going to be too problematic for them to do when, one of the ships was an unwilling participant in the ship-to-ship mating. So I think that it's something that it would involve a bit of a 180 turn on CIG's end. And I'm not really sure that that's the direction that they want to head. And certainly, like, you would have to start making ships that are specifically built around that, which would mean you would have to change a number of ships. And I don't know if CIG really has the manpower, even if they had the desire, if they really have the manpower or the time right now to kind of go and look at something like that and kind of give it a rework, much less, anytime soon, maybe sometime down the road, like a few years from now or more. But right now, it's just totally something that's not on the card. So when I kind of looked at this idea, critically, and I started to kind of pull my idea apart, as I often do, it just didn't make sense anytime soon that CIG would put something in like that in the game. It would be cool, but ultimately it doesn't make sense when you kind of look at it with a critical eye. This is why when I hear about, kind of game features or game systems kind of being developed in the blind, away from players' eyes, I become a little bit nervous around things like this, because, there's, from the game developer's perspective, it's like, oh, but we're gamers too, so we understand, but not really. I mean, a game developer looks at a game in a much different way, in the same way that an artist looks at a painting, or people sometimes even see themselves. And it's, you need that external input sometimes to kind of pull you back from the edge. And realistically, one of the things that players are, we're not so great with tact, and our bedside manner is laughable at times, but we're really good at breaking systems, and we're really good at finding bugs, and we're amazing at, just kind of cutting out all the BS and getting right down to brass tacks and saying this doesn't work or this does work. This is a good idea. This is a bad idea. And oftentimes game developers, the way some of the criticism is worded, and I'm totally guilty of this too, is not the best, but game developers sometimes take things really super personally. An attack on my system is an attack on me. An attack on my UI is an attack on me. And sometimes they really just can't look at these things dispassionately, and they can't say, oh yeah, that's actually not that great for the game, Other times, some systems get put into games that are just like forced upon the developers that they know are wrong. But, they've got, word came down from upstairs. Oh, you've got to stick this in the game. And that's kind of why a lot of us, I think, gravitate towards Star Citizen, because the corporate concerns just don't seem to be as as malignant as they are in other games, I think would be the best word. I mean, there's definitely the financial pursuit angle. Let's not pretend that it's not there, but it's not as grotesque as it is in many AAA titles. One of the titles I spoke about recently, The Old Republic, you know how that is. But certainly EA. But at the same time, I think that game developers really do have to lean on players as the other side of that coin. And you can't have one without the other, right? Like they work in a kind of a symbiotic relationship, sometimes a little antagonistic, but sometimes very antagonistic. But the truth of it is you need both those inputs. And so I totally see the argument where it's like, oh, we don't want to deliver a system to players when it's not complete or another part is missing. But even an incomplete system, players can look at that and they can just say, oh, well, I see 3 or 4 ways that this can be broken. I see 3 or 4 ways that this needs to be changed, And unfortunately, that's always like a problem when you develop in the blind, is you remove that critical feedback. And it needs to be there. It really does need to be there in lockstep with a lot of these systems. And I mean, the truth of it is everybody really knows this, right? This isn't like a shocking revelation. Everybody knows this because, I often say that, when people always say, or when certain people say that, oh no, just let the developers do their thing, they know what they're doing. Most players out there will be like, yeah, that's not true. Because every player, everyone who's ever going to watch this video can come back and look at this. And if I were to say, sit there and name one situation where a video game that you played, the developers made some completely nonsensical change to the game for their own edification, for their own reasons. I want people to play the game more this way. And it ruined the game, or it changed the game in some fundamental way that it just made playing it less fun. And the truth of it is everybody watching this video can be like, oh yeah, dude, well, where do I start? This is going to be a long speech. Let me get a glass of water. Let me take a quick bathroom break because we're going to be here for a while, right? Everyone has those stories. Everyone knows it. It's nothing new. And I feel that players still need to have their hands in these things. I can understand if you're pushing Squadron 42 away because you kind of want to hide the plot and you don't want to give too many of the big surprises and the big moments away, okay. I mean, to me, I really don't kind of care about that stuff, but okay, all right, I'll let that go. But core game systems and systems that affect careers that people are buying ships for and that they want to pursue, whether it's medical, mining, hauling, salvaging, whatever, bounty hunting, players need to kind of be into that, and they need to have their hands in that because it's kind of like willingly removing a huge amount of your brain before you try to do anything. What things like YouTube forums and Reddit are is it's the collected mental power of everyone who's a participant there. And yeah, there are some negative consequences to that, dealing with some interesting personalities online, but at the same time, you're still benefiting from just that collected intelligence. It's the same way you go to watch a video on YouTube and automatically you know how to cook something, or you know how to make something that otherwise you didn't know how to do 30 minutes before. You have access to all this mental power. Why be afraid to use it?
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.